Hi, everybody. Hello, Bayit family, community, anybody listening in. This is Rabbanit Bracha, and I'm here to share a few words about the parasha as we go into Parashat Shelach Lecha. In the parasha, perhaps the most famous part is the story of the Meraglim. Some call them spies, some call them scouts. I think I prefer scouts. But it comes from the word regel, which means that they're literally walking in order to check out the land. Am Yisrael, the Israelites, have come to Moshe and said, we don't know, are we really able to go into this land of Canaan? Will we really be able to be successful and conquer it? We're not sure. And Moshe actually checks with God, and the consensus is to send a representative from each tribe, 12 altogether. And many of us know that 10 out of the 12 came back with what we call a bad report. Lashon hara, hotza'at diba, gossip, or saying something bad that actually wasn't true. What did they come back and say? I'm reading from Parashat Shelach. This is Perek Yud Gimel, the 13th chapter, verses 31 and 32. They say, the scouts who came up with Kalev, he was one of the two that came back with the good report, said, Lo nuchal lalot el ha'am. We will not be able to go up, aliyah. We will not be able to go up into the land of Israel, the land of Canaan, and conquer it, in parentheses, ki chazaku mimeno, because it is stronger than we are. Vayotziu dibat haaretz. They brought an evil report, asher taroba, the land that they had spied or scouted. They brought it to the Israelites saying, this land that we've passed through to tour it or to spy it out, eretz ochelet yoshveahi, it actually devours its own inhabitants. And every single person that we saw in it were huge. Now, we actually know that the land, the people in the land, we know from a further accounting and reporting in the book of Joshua that actually the people in Canaan were afraid of the Israelites. It's not that they were so huge and that the Israelites had to be afraid of them. Rather, when they go into Jericho, into Yericho, and the next set of scouts, and they meet Rachav says to them in chapter 2 of Joshua, verse 9 to 11, what does she say? She said to the men, I know, she's not even Jewish, that Hashem has given you the land, and that the fear of you have fallen upon us, and all the inhabitants of the land have melted or dissolved in fear because of you. Why? Because we have heard how Hashem dried up the waters of the Sea of Reeds, Yam Suf. Remember, that's when they crossed the sea, when he went forth from Egypt. And what you did to the two kings of the Amorites, to Sichon and to Og, whom you utterly destroyed, we heard and our hearts melted. No spirit remained in any man because of you, because Hashem your God is the God in the heavens above and the earth below. So that wasn't true, what the scouts said. And Rabbi Sachs points out, they should have known this, the scouts, because just a little while before, when they had crossed through the Yam Suf and they sang Shirat Hayam, the song of the sea, what did they sing? They sang in Shemot, Exodus, chapter 15, verses 14 and 15. They said, people, Amim, other nations heard, they were agitated. Terror gripped the dwellers of Plashet. The chieftains of Edom were terrified. Trembling gripped Moab. All the dwellers of Canaan simply melted and dissolved. They sang that everybody who was in the land of Israel were terrified of them. So the scouts knew that. The Meraglim knew that. It's verified when Rachav says, yes, that's actually the way they were. So what happened that they came back and said these negative reports and misread the situation? The Kotzker Rebbe explains, in verse 33 in our parasha, here was their problem. If we look at verse 33, at the end of it, it says, Vanehi ve'einenu kachagavim v'chein hayinu be'einehem. We were like grasshoppers, meaning small and without power in our eyes, And so were we in their eyes. So the first part, yes, they were afraid. We felt terrified in front of them. But what the Kotzker Rebbe says is they should never have attributed what they were feeling to the other side. They should never have assumed that. They saw it through their lens. They weren't able to take that step back and remember that actually, even if they were gripped with fear in the moment, because it is scary in a new situation, that actually that's not what the other side was feeling. And the two scouts who came back with positive reports, Kalev and Yehoshua, they were able to take that step back, to look at it from a different point of view, and perhaps to remember what they actually knew in their heads. And I think that for us, we can learn something from this. In our day-to-day going about, in our interactions with people, the most natural way that we approach any situation is interpreting the other side, the other one's actions, the other one's words, through our lens, through the way we understand, to what is obvious to us. And it is so hard to take that step back and question and be curious and ask, not in a negative way, but to be curious and ask the other one, is this actually what you meant? This is what I understood. This is what I'm feeling. But is this what you meant? So it's not the same thing as talking about a land and going up and conquering it. But there are so many lessons we can learn from the Torah. And that's a lesson to take for ourselves. So let's go into this Shabbat of Shabbat Shelach Lecha, about Eretz Yisrael, Israel, which is so present in our hearts all the time, praying for the safety of the soldiers and the well-being of everybody there. Let us try to remember in all our interactions, especially when there seems to be friction, to try to take that breath and say, wait a minute, perhaps I'm attributing something. Perhaps there's a misunderstanding. Perhaps I understood it through a certain lens, and I need to take a step back to be curious and check with the other one. May this be a Shabbat of Shalom, of peace, of peacefulness, and Besorot Tovot. May we hear good tidings from Israel.